Let me introduce to you our guests today, and we'll start with Yvonne. Yvonne, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Strachan. I'm from Colorado. I have 5 kids. They range from 6 years old now all the way up till 19. I've been homeschooling for over 11 years. It's been such a blessing. So I'm so glad to be here.
Wonderful. We're so glad you can be here too. Mandy, tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I am a retired homeschool mom, and I started back in 1996 when it was like really scary to do this kind of thing. But I've graduated 3 homeschool students, and they are all in their mid-20s and success stories, serving the Lord, and very just a good time for us as a family. And have my first grandson now, so I have made the complete cycle.
Well, and there's a lot of expertise and advice there. And two, I think being a grandma probably provides some additional thought in what you might do, because now you might be advising your children, right?
Absolutely. And so it was really encouraging. My son the other day asked me specifically about some homeschooling advice. And our grandson is just 1 year old, so we have a little bit of ways to go. But it was neat to see that he was already thinking about it, which direction to go, and yeah, it's been a blessing for sure.
That is awesome. And then Jennifer, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, I live in the upstate of South Carolina. I have 4 kids. They range from 3rd grade to a junior in high school. I have homeschooled for 7 years, and I've also been in the private or public school for 7 years as well. So kind of been in each pool of education.
That's great, because all those experiences that God allows us to be part of helps round us out, and he's so good to use our experiences in that way, not just for our own families but for each other. And that's one of the reasons we do what we do, is to help other families. So glad to see some people tuning in. David Allen from North Carolina, 7 kids, 7 and 10, going into 2nd and 5th grade and considering homeschooling for the first year. And so there's a lot to think about. And so we're going to ask some questions of these ladies, our experts here. And they're going to give some very specific answers. So hopefully those will help you. And if you have questions, we'll do our best to answer them for you. So let's hit the ones that we know that people ask often. The first one is, and this is kind of a nebulous question, because once we ask this one, they all kind of come after that. Where do I even start? How do I even start this? So if you were for the very first time going, the light bulb has gone off, I might homeschool, what is the first place to go in your mind? Where do you go first? Anybody?
Well, Sharon, one of the things that I think is very important is to write down why you're homeschooling. And that way you can have focus as you start homeschooling on the reasons that you're doing it, because it's challenging, but it's so incredibly rewarding. So after you do that, then I recommend going into your state's website on homeschooling laws, because you want to be sure to follow those. So that's very, very important. And then after that, you'll start looking at curriculum, and there's a lot of curriculum out there. So you want to make sure that it aligns with your values and what your goals are in homeschooling your children, and your faith. And those are real important. And if you're aligned with those, you're going to do very well. You can always adapt your curriculum to your needs. So if you're aligned with those things, that's going to be the most important.
That's very important. And I think that people probably need to park. And I'd like to park here just for a second. The other two that are wanting to answer, let's park here just for a minute in the very first part of what she said, the why. Because I think if we go too fast into the other stuff, we're going to get really frustrated fast. Can you give some comments on those?
I can speak a little bit to that. And I was going to say just what Yvonne was saying. When we first started homeschooling, we made it a point to come before the Lord and make it a spiritual decision. We took upon ourselves a homeschool verse from the scriptures, and we made sure that we knew that verse upside down and and backwards, because there are going to be hard days. And you're going to have to be able to go back and say, this is why I started. This is our foundation. And this is why we can continue. So I think that is just a great place to start. Make sure that you have the mind of the Lord on it, and then reach out and find a support system for sure.
Good. Jennifer?
Yes, I was going to say that why is so important, and it can also change in each season. So don't think that the why that you first got that motivated you into this step is going to be the same why 3 or 4 years later. So always go back to that place. I try to go there each summer before I start my next school year and say, what is my purpose? What is my intention? What is my goal this year? So that there's that fresh breath of energy and that fresh purpose that the kids all are a part of that purpose. We have family discussion about it. We know it, and we are all working together towards that same goal. And I also think your first step with homeschooling is going to depend on when that first inkling comes into your heart, that first decision is made. If it happens in the middle of the school year, your first steps might look a little different than if that decision happens in the summer. When it was first put on my heart, it was actually October. My son was already enrolled in school. So my first steps looked a little different. I had to have a meeting with his school, with administration. I had to unenroll. So I think if your timing is also going to determine some first steps.
Well, and that's a good point. And the other thing is, don't let that hinder you. If it happens in October, it happens in January, or it happens before the school year starts, don't let that hinder you from doing what God has laid on your heart. We have ways to come alongside you and help you do that. There's a lot of material online from Homeschool Legal Defense Association that will point you to. And so don't let that keep you from doing the things that you think you need to do. That's great. So then let's say that we've spent some time praying about it. And by the way, Mandy, I appreciated this point as well. You talked about having a support system. Don't just jump into this and not, if you've had that conversation with your spouse, or maybe you're single and you've made that decision for yourself, you've got to have a support system. Who's going to back you up? Who's going to help you? At least have that in your mind and written out. Now you've got to go for the actionable things. How do you enroll your child as a homeschooler? So how do you do that? Now, of course, you all are in different states, so there's different answers to that. So maybe you can address that. And everyone's going to be different. We can't hit all 50 of them today, but we do have a blog. Homeworks by Precept has a blog, and we're working on getting those up there. So you'll find some, but maybe give a little tip or two for your state, ladies.
I can start. I just find my support system. We have a homeschool organization here. I'm in the state of Maine. And those right now, the laws are sort of being challenged. So it's always a good place to start. Just find the experts in your state. And if you're not sure where to find that, you can go to hslda.org. And they have all the contact information that you would need for each state. And those people have a heart for homeschooling. They've been doing this for years, and they will help you be able to figure out what the first step is.
Excellent.
And a way to find that expert she just mentioned is if you go on to Homeworks by Precept, their webpage, and then click on Find a Consultant, you can find a consultant right near you, and they will have all the resources that you need. And then it'll give you a support person to help you pray through your journey, to help you find co-ops in your area and other associations.
Good. Yvonne?
Yeah, that's really good. I know all the Homeworks consultants really can be helpful. They're very knowledgeable. They know everything around them, what the resources are and everything. In our state, as you start homeschooling, it is very important to get that notice of intent in and make sure that if you are enrolled in your school that you unenroll them and let them know that you are going to homeschool. So that I think is important for a lot of the states, but just double check that before you homeschool, because you want to make sure that you are homeschooling within the legal system.
So for those who are tuned in and watching right now or commenting, if you're thinking about it, even just thinking about it right now, now's a good time to contact a homeworks consultant. Just go to homeschoolhelp.com/map. There's a map. You can click on your state. And my recommendation is go talk to a mom. This is a free service. There's no there's no requirements, there's no fees, there's nothing there. Just talk to a mom and you go, what is it like to homeschool in our state? What is going to be needed? And she will go through, because she'll know the exact laws and the things that she has done. And she's helped probably thousands at this point of families do that. And go ahead and take some notes and figure out what it is you think you need to work through. And then you can, on your own, look at HSLDA's website, look at your local groups, check out some Facebook groups, check out some co-ops and things like that, and sort of do a little bit of research so that you feel secure. Because a lot of the people who come to us will say, how do I know I'm qualified? I'm not sure I am. And because there's so much information, it's intimidating for a mom. So maybe you can answer that, ladies. How do we know that these ladies are qualified to homeschool? How can you assure them that they're qualified?
I'll start this one off. As a public school and private school teacher, when we have orientation, the first way I start my year off is by doing an evaluation with the parents, and do a questionnaire so that I can know the children well. I can never have a successful year with the kids if I don't know them well. And you are the person who knows your child the best. I was thinking, if you're going to get a 4-year degree or a master's degree, that usually takes like 6 years to get a master's. And by the time your child is school age, you already have a master's degree in your child. Nobody else is going to know that student or have the heart for your child like you. You're going to know all the things. You're going to know their passions. You're going to know their weaknesses. So it's the best way to meet and give them an individualized education plan.
Excellent.
I'll just say, I'm sorry, Yvonne. Go ahead, Yvonne.
Oh, I was just going to say, exactly. She's exactly on. I was going to say the exact same thing. So very good.
Yeah, you're the mom. You're the mama. And so you know exactly what your child needs. I would just encourage you to believe in yourself and see your role as a God-given role and take it from there and go with it.
That's excellent. And, I think that there's that initial fear of, okay, you're telling me I'm qualified because I know my child, but I don't know how to teach this material. I'm not, for example, I never taught high school biology. So how can I teach this stuff? And of course, I remember how to read. I can teach my kids how to read. But for a mom or a dad who's looking at that, how can they be sure that what they're teaching, because I think that's a lot of it, not just the am I qualified, but how do I impart this knowledge to my kids? How do I do that?
And I think that's when you have to make sure you have the right tools. Even a doctor would not go in the surgery room do a heart surgery the same way he would do a tonsillectomy. I mean, you have to have the right tools for the task in front of you. If it's something you've wanted to learn and that it's in your wheelhouse to add to, then learn alongside with your kid. If it's something that you know is a weakness, then have the right tools. When it gets to that point with my children, that's when I use online learning resources and use those who are experts in the field to come alongside and help me, because I'm not supposed to be everything for my child, but I am supposed to be their support.
Anybody else?
Yeah, absolutely. You can learn along with your child, and the tools out there are amazing. BJU Press has absolutely amazing tools. The teachers are very knowledgeable, and they bring the biblical worldview excellently through their videos. And if you're doing parent-led, the teachers editions are absolutely phenomenal. And I was not a teacher when I started. I was actually an interior designer, did kitchen design, and so I was not, didn't go to school for that. So, but I've felt very confident throughout the years with having the correct tools helping me with my children. And also having that planned curriculum has been absolutely phenomenal for me, because I've been confident that they are learning what they need to learn, and they're doing just great in their school. My oldest, she has a missing chromosome, and we've adapted even the curriculum to her and slowed hers down, but still by the time that she graduates, I mean, she's 19, so we slowed it down. She'll graduate probably about 21, but she will be completely qualified to go to college. And I'm just so excited about that. And I have had the confidence to be able to do that, slow her down, but still get her where she needs to be. And that has been absolutely a blessing to us.
That is amazing. Mandy?
Ditto on everything. They've said it very well. The tools that you have in hand. Of course, BJU Press Homeschool is excellent. We started, of course, with that when our kids were young. The teacher's editions literally have everything laid out for you. I mean, to the point where they say this, and then they give you the sentence to say. So it's very, very teacher friendly, parent friendly, and anyone can use this and have a success story.
That's very good. And I think that and you can see these ladies are confident in their teaching. They've done it for years. You can have that confidence too. And one of the questions that we had here was about considering homeschooling for next year, but might want to send them back to school the next year. So keeping them on track, having a curriculum that meets the standards and is age appropriate for your child will help your child to stay on track. So if you do feel like you need to do it for a short period of time, you can have that confidence that they can go back into school. And of course, there's adjustments either way. But tomorrow or later today, we're going to do a Q&A on getting started with BJU Press specifically. So if you've got questions about that, we'll talk about that more specifically. Did I interrupt somebody? If I did, I apologize. Okay, great. So let's talk about, knowing that we have the confidence to do this. We have the tools. We can find that. And we know if we go to homeschoolhelp.com //map, we can find a consultant. So we can find out more about BJU Press, and we can go to the next session we have at 12 to find out more about that. But what about setting up a schedule or planning a day? How long does a day take? What about those sorts of questions?
Well, I'll start off with that one. It really is going to depend on the age of your child. If you have a preschooler, you can do that in a couple of hours probably. High schooler, of course, is going to require more work and attention and focus. And a lot of it depends on your child and how well they can sit and stay on task. So I would just encourage you to play with the schedule. You need something to follow because it's going to get very chaotic if you don't. And you want your homeschool day to be, you want it to be fun. You want it to be engaging, but you want it to be focused. So it's always good to have some kind of schedule to follow. But it just really depends on how long the day is according to how many students or how many subjects you're going to be doing. I always like to give the rule of thumb, especially for the upper elementary and the high school, depending on if you're using our online product or our DVD product, you would take the length of the video content and then double that. And that's what you're going to be spending approximately each day on that particular subject. So the short answer is anywhere from 2 to maybe 6 hours of school a day.
Yeah, I would also say at one point when I was homeschooling, I was pregnant. At one point I was nursing. At one point I had children who napped. So look at where your family life is. Look at what season you're in, and be realistic about your day. If you're working part-time, consider that factor about when you're going to start or when your day is going to end. This is one of the biggest gifts of homeschooling. It gets to be tailored to your lifestyle and to your season. And then also I've heard people say that, we don't like a schedule, but in a sense, everybody does, because if you're working full time, you're looking at your clock until it turns 5 o'clock, and that's when you get out, because people need to know, okay, when does work end? When does play start? And if you want your child to have a good, strong work ethic, you or the parent is going to have to let them know these are work hours, these are play hours. And they can't really determine that by themselves, especially if they're younger. So, and then an older child will be able to have a longer stretch without breaks, and a younger child's going to need more consistent, predictable breaks. And that's when we used to have snack time or recess or, grocery store. And that's when we would do a few things to break that up so they could have a time to let the energy build back up, get some energy out.
That's great. Yvonne, let me ask you then. So on day one, let's say you've got this all worked out, you got your curriculum, you've got the schedule planned out. What should you do on your first day? Should you just start off like gangbusters and do all of it?
Absolutely not. Thank you for asking that question. I was going to say that I agree 100% with those ladies, and I was just going to add in how to kind of start out your day. So I recommend getting up and getting ready for your day so you can be more energetic and more purposeful in your day. And as you're working, especially when you begin schooling, what you'll want to do is just start out slowly. And if you don't get done with all of your subjects, what you can do is take the subjects that you didn't complete and have them start with that the next day. And that way you can rotate through without skipping the same thing every day. And as you get to anywhere from weeks 4 through 8, you'll be more used to working together, and it will become more streamlined. So you just keep going at it. And when you have younger children, if you are more purposeful in the morning, that is so much easier than waiting and letting them play and then trying to rein them in into the afternoon. And I've really noticed that with my children. The other thing that I've really noticed with them is, get centered here, is if I'm working with them and they don't seem to be concentrating, maybe that's time to take a 5 or 10 minute break and then maybe work on something else, or maybe really just work alongside them. Because if you're not sitting with them, especially younger kids, they're going to think recess as soon as you leave the room. So I've noticed that, especially with the younger kids, where the older kids can work more on their own for longer periods of time.
Okay, it looks like we've lost Sharon here. So until we get her back, let's see if we can figure out some other. Oh, there she is. Oh, thank you.
Guys, I'm back. That was an excellent, excellent answer. And you know, when kids start school, if they're at a traditional school, the teacher's not teaching all the subjects on the first day either. So give yourself a break. And I know some of it is the parents are so excited about homeschooling and their kids are so excited. They just want to plow through everything. But especially if you're new, you need to learn how your kids learn. You need to learn how can they sit still? Can they, do they need to get up and take a break? What is it like to learn from mom? This is all brand new. And so taking it slowly and gently and making, your plans, you can certainly rough out a schedule and rough out plans, but really you're experimenting a little bit at the beginning, and you want to take the time and enjoy those first days. And if you go full blown and your kids are full blown, you're going to get frustrated really quickly. So it's okay. And by the way, the beginning of every year in every book is review of the previous year. So it's not brand new material. It's okay to cut back a little bit. So going in and out is what we're going to do some more. So Jennifer, thank you for being with us here. And she's going to be with us for some other ones as well. And we're going to bring in another South Carolina consultant, and that's Alice Bradley. So we're going to welcome her here shortly, and we'll let her introduce herself. There we go. Hi, Alice. I think you might be muted. Is your microphone unmuted?
There I am. Sorry.
There you are. Wonderful.
I am Alice Bradley, and I have 5 children. I'm on the home stretch as well. I have 2 out of college, 2 in college, and then I have a senior this year. So this will be my 23rd year. So
so much expertise here. So we've been talking about getting started homeschooling. Do we need to teach all the subjects? But what about a homeschool space? Do you have any comments about how to set up a homeschool? Because I think a lot of people think they have to have a room, which a lot of people do. But to get started, what are your recommendations, Alice?
I would say you don't have to have a certain room, that has to be the schoolroom. And a lot of people don't have that. So sometimes it's on the dining room table, although that can be challenging when it's time to eat. But you make do with what you have and you work around it. Some of the other things were, one thing that didn't really work for us is when I had a child with 5 of them, if I had a child in a separate room, that didn't always work because there wasn't that, I tend to forget, or things wouldn't get done. The follow-up wasn't there. So headsets are great, trying to keep them as much as you can in the same room, in the same area where you can, work the best you can. But
Mandy, you're nodding your head.
It's funny that Alice would say that. As my kids got older, and you can Google homeschool spaces and you can get some amazing ideas. I would caution you though, because if you do that, you're going to think, I can't do this, because there are some folks that just have made an elaborate effort and attempt to make their homeschool room really, really amazing, which there's nothing wrong with that. But not all of us were as fortunate to be able to have that space. I started with the table, the kitchen table. We eventually got a little tiny desk that I put in the corner of my kitchen. We went down to the basement and used 8-foot tables when I started homeschooling multiple kids. And then as my high schooler got older, I put him in his room to get him away from his sisters and to give him a little bit of privacy. And that did tend to work for us. So it just depends on your family and your dynamics. But just be thankful for what you have. And it doesn't have to be, it's just remember, it's not the space, it's what they're learning. And so be encouraged that it doesn't have to be perfect. I think a lot of new homeschool families feel like they have to make everything perfect, and that's not realistic. Your kids need to be able to see you manage things with what you have. Excuse me. And so I think it's important for you just to be thankful for what you have and do the best you can and make it an adventure and take some of the stress off yourself.
I love that. Be realistic. I think sometimes we want to romanticize this a little bit, but then we're frustrated later and we wonder why we're disappointed or frustrated. So very good. Well, there's a person asking, this is where I was heading here, from New York City, considering homeschooling high school students. So homeschooling from K4 is a lot different from homeschooling high schoolers. And so can you graduate a child? Can you start at high school or start at K4 and go all the way through? Can you start anywhere and graduate your child? And if so, how do you do that? Yvonne, you want to start?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I've all the way through high school, and absolutely anybody can do it, and you can enter at any age. Getting the tools is very, very helpful. And again, with the BJU Press, I mean, it'll help you along with any age. The teacher's editions can help you with any of the questions that you need. And if you are using the video courses, that is a tremendous aid. Those teachers are absolutely expert at teaching the course, but also integrating the Bible throughout it. And so then what you're going to need to do, what the difference is between the younger years and the high school years is the grading and the recording, the transcripts, like that. And those are going to be very important. With BJU Press, it's easy because they have a scope and sequence that tells you what is in every subject, and that will help you tremendously as you do the transcripts. And I've even had some people tell me that they've actually taken that scope and sequence with them to the admissions office, and they absolutely love that. So that is a tremendous help. And yeah, absolutely, you're starting to homeschool somebody in 11th grade or in kindergarten.
Fantastic. Alice, did you want to mention something about that?
The labs, some of the things that are scary for high schoolers is what I'm talking about. The labs, biology, chemistry. I don't know what I'm doing. That was me. I need some help. That's where I utilize the video lessons. They do the labs in there, and then you can do them yourselves. And the other thing you can do is find somebody in your area who is doing it. I always said, if the wagon's coming by, jump on it. If somebody's doing biology and it's not quite time for your child, maybe it's next year, maybe switch out your sciences and go ahead and do it with them. Because it's a lot more fun when you have somebody to be accountable to really get those labs together. So,
very good. Mandy, you graduated too?
I have graduated 3.
You graduated 3?
Yes. And it is legal. Homeschooling is legal in all 50 states. So you, as a parent, can issue a diploma. And again, those specifics would be connected with the experts in your state because every state is different. But it is something that you can do. You can actually purchase diplomas, have those filled in. It is legal, and you can carry that to your job. You can carry that to the admissions office of the college that you want to apply to. All of that is very, very doable, and something that any parent can do.
So here's two questions we hear a lot. First one is, what if my child won't listen to me and won't do the work? Because they're children naturally. So what if they don't want to work, or if they're not in the mood, or they hate the lesson they're doing? What is your advice?
I can give a comment here if you want. I think kind of when you're starting, you have to set up who's in charge. They have to know that this is something Dad and I have prayed about. This is what we've decided for the year. This is what we're going to be doing. And I kind of do it like my husband can't always be in there, but he's the principal and he's asked me to do this job. So we need to do it. And so, and then they know they're accountable, that I'm doing the job that my husband gave me, and that they're accountable ultimately to him, you know, and to the Lord. But as they're learning that part, they have to learn who, and, you know, they're going to push the buttons and try to get away with what they can. But a lot, and there were days when all we did was character training. We had to teach them, no, we have to stay with this. This is what we've got to do. And we always would say, the kids on the school bus are going. They're going now. It's the law. We have to do school. So we either do it here, you know, this is where we're going to be doing it. You can't give them a choice if you've already chosen it. But, you know, you have to really set up the guidelines, and really, you know, if at all possible, get your husband right on board and have him be that support that you need. Because when he comes home, they can see the people if they need to, and he can, you know, help. So that's important, I think, just to set up the guidelines. And it's going to take a little bit of time. So give yourself some grace.
And those guidelines might change, and you may need to add to them, or you might go, well, that didn't work. Right? Okay, well, here's one that we all hear. What about socialization?
Absolutely. I'll talk about that one. Boy, I tell you, a lot of homeschoolers have a problem having too much socialization in a way, because, you know, there's so much opportunity out there. There's sports leagues, there's groups in every state. There's so many more people homeschooling than there was even 10, 15 years ago. And Mandy, you could probably, you know, say that too. But there's so many resources out there, and so many options that I've had of times where in the year I'm like, well, we can't do this and we can't do that. And we have to really concentrate more on our studies. But every season is different. And, you know, I've noticed that the homeschool children usually can talk with older children all the way down to younger children and even adults in a very relaxed manner, because they're used to dealing with everybody, just like we do in our fields when in our careers. So really what we're creating is an atmosphere that they'll be in the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anybody have trouble with your kids being socialized? No.
The socialization thing is just a myth. It's something that people want us to think is really happening, but it's not an issue. There are so many opportunities for your children to have friends. I mean, we're not isolating our kids. We're not keeping them from society. And they learn to deal with real problems, real life, real people every day. So,
and that's the other thing too. For mom, you're not omniscient. You don't know everything, and God's not expecting you to be. He's just expecting you to, if he's called you to homeschool, if you feel led to do that, he's expecting you to follow his lead, and he's the leader. He'll lead you, he'll show you, and he's providing people to help you. So having that support network is important. Contact a consultant. Let us help you with that. If you're concerned about whether or not your child's learning enough or you're not doing it right, let us help you do that. I've got one more question, but I do want to answer this one that's on our screen here. Melody mentions that she's strongly considering homeschooling her kindergartner. She's an only child, and so she's concerned about that. Obviously, you want that socialization, you know, that interaction if there's no other kids there. So how do you know then for a young child that she's going to have other kids to play with or to be able to interact with, that she's not just isolated at home? What's your recommendations?
There's co-op groups. There's co-op groups you can be a part of, get your child involved in there. Or sometimes they have groups that just will, other families will meet you at a park just so that the playtime they can go do things. And then through the co-ops, you make friends, have connections there.
And grandma, having that time with grandma or having some one-on-one time with dad, don't forget that it's not like it's school time and then it's lifetime. This is your life. This is your homeschooling is your life. So that's part of what you do. And so yeah, being part of your church, being part of a play group. Okay, so one more question and then we've got to go here is, what is the biggest lesson that you as a consultant have learned for homeschooling your own kids, or the thing that really compels you most to encourage people to homeschool? I'll start with Yvonne, and then we'll do Mandy, and then we'll close with Alice.
Okay. Oh boy, give yourself grace and be flexible. God gave you your children. He planned for you to be together. He knew of these days before they were even born. So just give yourself grace that, he trusts you and you love them and you're going to do whatever you can to help them. And so in that respect, be flexible, because some children are going to move at a slower pace. Some are going to have an easy time with everything, spelling and whatnot. But as you're working through each day, every day is going to look different. You're going to have interruptions. And if you look at that from a biblical point of view, you'll realize that every single thing that you're doing with your children, you're going to be speaking to their hearts as you're disciplining them. You're going to be helping them in every aspect of life throughout your homeschool. So just give yourself grace that every moment is important, even if it's not exactly what is planned, those studies.
Very good. Mandy?
I would say go after their hearts and make sure that you start that as soon as possible, even if you're in midstream here and your kids are older. Really make sure that you are seeking that deep level of commitment from them and relationship with them. And also, as Yvonne has said, just be flexible, be patient with yourself. This is not a race. This is just a beautiful trip, a journey that you have with your kids. And mine are all done now. And so I look back with great memories. My kids are all each other's best friends. That has just carried through the whole time. So they are still the first ones that they call when they have good news to share. It's a blessing to be on the other end of that and see that and all those hours and years of investing. And it wasn't necessarily conscious. We were just a family and we just did things together. And it was a wonderful, wonderful journey for us. I would also say, please do not compare yourself and your homeschool with someone else. It's not going to be the same because you have different kids, you are a different parent. The circumstances are different, and God made you and your family unique. So you need to just do you and not worry about what everybody else is doing around you. Don't compare when your child starts to read with the next door neighbors. Everybody's on a different timetable. So let them learn at their own pace, enjoy where you are, and just learn to laugh with them. Some of the best memories I have with my kids are when we just set the books aside and we just had just a good time of laughing and joking and just family fun. So don't forget that element of it. Education is not all in the books. It's just sometimes you just have to get out and find those teachable moments and take advantage of them. But it is truly a blessing. And I think that if you ever get started with this journey, you'll look back and just thank the Lord that you were able to go down that road.
That's beautiful. Alice?
I would say cherish every moment. Like, I'm on the end like Mandy is. And I look back at 22 years, it flashed before my eyes with my kids. And I have cherished every moment. I'm so thankful that I've been able to homeschool. I wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world. But like they said, be flexible, give yourself some grace. And the verse that we had that was really helpful is Hebrews 4:16. Therefore, let us draw near with confidence to the throne of grace so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. And there are going to be difficult days, but the Lord is right there. You protect your quiet time, your prayer time with the Lord. Make sure that nothing interferes with that. I mean, relatively when they're really young, but you know what I mean? Try to really protect that. And then do the best you can. Do the best you can, and then leave the rest in the Lord's hands.
And that's really advice for parenting overall, isn't it? Yeah. So those of you who ask questions, hopefully those answered your questions. If they didn't, you're welcome to add comments to this thread. We're going to have another one of these today at 12:30, and that's going to be talking about getting started homeschooling using BJU Press. So we're going to talk more specifically about that. If you have questions about that, they'll answer some questions about grading and high school and transcripts and some of that sort of thing. And then we've got one tomorrow. We're going to have one on Wednesday and 2 more on Monday. So go to our Homeworks by Precept Facebook page, look at the events, invite your friends, and feel free to comment and ask questions, and then we'll try to answer those the best we can. So ladies, thank you for sharing your journeys. Thank you for encouraging people year round, and it's been a blessing to visit with you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Sharon.